Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. We are back with the Prosperity Channel. It is evening here in Oklahoma City. It is a very cold day, December the 6th, 2025. Tomorrow is the anniversary where World War II started, when Germany attacked Poland. December the 7th was when Pearl Harbor was attacked. And that started World War II. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very important segment of our broadcasting because millions and millions of Americans all over the world are watching this. And we have been subject to a lot of criticisms and complaints. Some are complaints, and some are suggestions, mga pintas, Some Filipinos call it pintas, And they've been very strong about it, very critical. And my style of journalism is really the high class, the high level. And we take criticism, suggestions, vehement remarks very, very professionally. What does that mean? It means to say we have to answer it accordingly and thereby improving our standards to the highest possible. However, we will never agree on statements that are baseless and simply an outright lie, and therefore we have to file charges. In America, it's called maligning. Okay? So all our statements are based on evidence. And as I promised to you on day one, I will close the station if we will get into the Monica Lewinsky language, where, we call it after 5 hours talk in big time business. We have nothing to do with the personal lives of businessmen, political figures, and the like. If you want to discuss that, discuss it with a tabloid. We are not a tabloid. We are a highly professional international organization that focuses on one major issue, and that is prosperity. How to be wealthy, how to make it sustainable. The rest, in my opinion, are all hogwash. And again, we can discuss that in another segment because we know already how the world works, especially in business. And I've told you this time and time again on what happened with Bill Gates, etc., etc. The only way you can beat, or how do I call it in a very diplomatic manner, the only way to defeat Bill Gates is to hit him below the belt, so to speak. In other words, personal life. We will never do that here. Why? Because that is an after 5 statement, so to speak. And we do not want our good name to be tarnished whatsoever. And that's why when I mentioned a while ago, when there are criticisms, suggestions, vehement remarks against me or this station, we take it positively. Because once we answer those allegations or those criticisms, suggestions, complaints, our level of journalism will be hitting an all-time high of the high. In other words, we will be hitting what I call the perfection level, because we will continuously address these issues face to face. And if they are not happy, we are more than willing to invite them at the Prosperity Channel. And that is why we are very confident to solve so many issues in America, from the daily murder to flying to Vladivostok and help the current administration of President Donald Trump under the leadership of Marco Rubio, the Great Secretary of President Trump, Secretary of State, to immediately solve the problem with the current supreme head of Russia, President Vladimir Putin. And so many other issues, because I am being requested by so many Filipinos right now to solve the problem that we have there right now, which is, again, the usual graft and corruption. But let me focus first on our station, the Prosperity Channel. I am willing to put my reputation on the line that my group, together with, of course, the approval of President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, we can finish the war between Russia and Ukraine, because it's very clear that I went to Singapore last year. The Ukrainian officials were there in my hotel in Singapore, and I told them very, very succinctly, you must put down your arms. You must stop the war. And the first step is to declare a statement to the Russian government that we don't want to have a war with you guys. The second step is to agree on a venue, which I proposed again, the very nice location of Vladivostok, which is very historical in Russian history, to end the war. But what is happening right now is that President Putin does not agree on the terms and conditions of the peace plan. And sad to say, President Trump is being fooled by certain people that this person can do the job in convincing President Putin. Because that was the number one faux pas, the number one failure of the Biden administration, was to hire a bureaucrat by the name of Anthony Blinken to handle all of these wars, which ended up with America looking very, very bad. Very, very bad. In fact, the Chinese, the Russians, the Indians, and so many Europeans were laughing behind the back of, in my opinion, the greatest foreign expert of the United States of our time, President Joe Biden. And many were saying that Blinken equals Biden. No way. And look at this disaster that President Trump is inheriting. And there is again this simplistic solution on the Russian-Ukraine war. But don't get me wrong, the team that solved the war between Hamas and the Israelites, that was a perfect team. What we need right now is an all-star cast, an all-star team of members that can attack this problem once and for all. And again, there is a big budget to that. And I'm very consistent to that. I'm very, very consistent to that. Okay? Once everything is clear, I can develop the content on what to exactly say to President Putin. And with my connections, who have a long-standing relationship with the Russian government since the time of Leonid Brezhnev, it can happen overnight. And that's why I'm preparing very hard for my flight to Mar-a-Lago to make this happen as soon as possible. But as usual, there are so many people here in Oklahoma that are throwing mud on my good name, like Grace Del Rosario, Wendell Manacat. These Filipino animals are the ones delaying this whole process. And the list goes on, you know. We're talking about so many names, including this person who faked his death certificate by the name of Donald R. Kincaid. He's a Filipino. He's a Filipino animal. Okay, he's there to throw mud at me. And then he would report to certain government officials, including the police force. He is corrupting the police force we have here in Oklahoma City. But moving forward, it can happen, and it will happen. I'm very confident that President Putin is waiting for the right team of negotiators to understand the history, the very great history of the Russian people. When I was 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, I already met with the Russians. Our neighbors were Russians. I know the history of Russia very well. They're very proud people. They're not just after the money, because they're rich on their own. They have the best cosmonauts during those times. They had the best athletes. They had the best music culture. They had the best scientists. Mathematics was the invention of so many of their scientists. They reinvented mathematics. But what happened? There was a Russian civil war again and again and again. And that's why China, the People's Republic of China, learned from them. And they avoided their mistakes. And look at China now. China is great because of what they learned with Russian communism. What China did was they combined the best practices of capitalism and communism, and look at them now. Russia could have been like that, and that is why Putin listens to me. Okay? And I am extremely confident with my reputation on the line, it can be done. But based on the plan that I'm going to propose. It will have a very big budget. It will not be the Concepcion budget. Okay? Okay? This is the real American budget to solve this problem 24/7 a day. But anyway, so now, ladies and gentlemen, it is very clear that the mud being thrown at my very good name is beginning to melt big time. Even Procter & Gamble knows about it. Johnson & Johnson, under the great Joaquin Duwater, knows about it. Knows the real score now. Kimberly-Clark, Colgate-Palmolive, SC Johnson, Nestle, Pepsi-Cola, Coca-Cola. These are the companies that believe in me, and I made very, very wealthy because of the best management practices update I was able to invent through the years. And ladies and gentlemen, this is what I can tell you. If you listen to me, just like so many people now, you will be very prosperous. Because the problem right now with America is they taint American prosperity. Sad to say. What are they doing? If you're rich, you're corrupt. No, that's false. If you're rich because, especially in America, you work relatively more than the common tao. You work because you create inventions. You work because you're highly talented. You work because you produce so much and therefore become very productive, and the society buys your products and professional services. Unlike in third world countries like the Philippines, it's a different story. Ang sabi nga sa akin, before I left a very prestigious company, maglupasay ka pa sa kalye. Hindi mo makukuha yan. Bakit? Hindi ka namang malakas kay alam mo kung sino na di ba? Ang dami mo pang sinasabi dyan, ang dami mo pang satsat dyan, umalis ka na. Putang ina mo, umalis ka na. That's the Philippines. That's why it's a third world country. It is based on emotion. And then they apologize. And then they're all here. Right now, in one of the worst states of the 50 United States of America. But look at Oklahoma now. It's number one. Why? Because of talented people like me. Pardon the braggadocio. Because the more talented people you get America, not the Managats, not the Del Rosario, America will become an overnight success, especially with the new card I'm developing, the monthly achievement report card, which came from the idea of the great Elon Musk, of Doge. And that's why I was telling my surrogates in Atlanta what's happening with the current, discussion that is becoming more negative between the great Congresswoman Marjorie Greene and President Trump will ultimately die down. All this talk about traitor is being misconstrued, Congresswoman Greene, because if you were on Trump's shoes, I think you would feel the same way, because you were very close once and all of a sudden you bolt out. So the term traitor is being taken out of context. In other words, if let's say a woman and a man stay together and the man decides to go bolt out or the woman decides to bolt out, there is a tendency to use that word, especially here in America. So, but anyway, I don't want to go into that right now, but it's very clear that the path to prosperity in America today is going to happen. Okay, it's going to happen. The predictions of certain economists, big time stockbrokers, is that 2026 will be a very good year. I'm more conservative to say that the biggest year of America will be 2027. If you want to invest now, now is the best time. It would be too late to delay this. Now is the best time to invest. And I fully agree, Mr. Bill Pulte, the cabinet secretary of the president, when he said that the 50-year loan term will be finally approved. Some bankers say that is wrong. My take is very clear. Mr. Pulte, you're on the right track. Because the main issue right now is affordability. Do it, Mr. Pulte, immediately. Do not listen to these bankers. They don't know what real estate is all about. Do not listen to these bankers. And again, I am putting my reputation on the line here because ultimately, Mr. Pulte, the loan can be refinanced. That's simple. But what is the main issue for 2026 is the big A, affordability. If the president can do this immediately, because Jerome Powell up to now is estimating or guesstimating what rate drop should happen, then it is very obvious. It is a question of the interest rate. Nothing more, nothing less. And with a new Fed chairman, that will be done the middle of this year, of next year, I'm sorry, there will be a sudden surge of confidence in the local and international markets. And that's why by the end of 2026, America's trajectory will be on a huge economic boom. But it is very clear that certain taxes have to be reduced, or tariffs, in order to make it affordable for the American manufacturer to produce low-cost goods, and for the American manufacturer to export big time and make America the #1 exporting country in the world. #1 overnight. Just don't include rubber bands and paper clips because they are low margin products. Give it to other countries. I repeat, when it comes to rubber bands, because a lot of people say, can you give me a list? Okay, I'll give you that list. Okay? Because we want America's manufacturers to focus on high profit margin products, including food. if you know how to do it. Because there was a guy who approached me a few years ago saying that blah, 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 and all that. And I just looked at the numbers. I said, only one thing. Your manufacturing team is not doing a good job. But you know how it is in business. They just want to do it. Then do it, I said. And now they're going back to me. Because their products are all low margin. In other words, worthless. There's an old saying in manufacturing, the more you produce, the more you lose. I repeat, the more you produce, the more you lose. The economies of scale is not there because the market is so saturated and you do not have that certain product differentiation versus the rest. Now that becomes complicated because it differs from one food product to the other. And that's why I am all clapping because Walmart will be having a new CEO under Mr. Joe Ferner, I think is the name. But the last 10 years of Walmart has been 1 or 2%. One or 2%. Why? There's so many reasons why. But what I'm going to propose to Ferner is 5%. 4 to 5, 6%. That is my estimate, which is very strong and firm. Because my invention, the G9 retail software package, where retailing will be a strict science, was already copied by a fellow Filipino by the name of Dexter Dezana, formerly of Procter & Gamble. And look at him now. Okay? I don't want to go to that level, down to their level, but look at him now. Okay? So, there's an old saying, make sure that what you're stealing is you know what you're stealing, or else your face will be, you will have no face. Especially in Japan, that's a big no-no. Okay, a loss of face is what? A very, very, very shocking result. In Japan, a loss of face is what? That's not the the American way will not apply there. Okay? I like to be very serious on that. In the Philippines, probably you can do that, Dexter. But in America, America's beginning to realize the values and the wisdom I've been proposing. You do that to America, you will be self-deported. Like Managat, the Rosario, Sardinia, the list goes on. They never learn. They just want to be having a thick face. This is not a program for thick faces. These are hard numbers, and you got to produce. And all my life has been like that. It's called under the gun selling. It has nothing to do with violence. But I always produce the numbers. That is my innate talent ever since I was a kid. Okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, it's about 11 o'clock, past 11. I have another program coming in, but rest assure you, the Prosperity Channel will be here for a very long time because our sponsors love us and we are expanding by the minute. And that's why I'd like to, again, request you to subscribe and make us a good like. And if you have any questions, you have my Viber number. It is 405-503-8511. This is your host, Gavin, the trusted one, Batista, trusted by so many American billionaires, because we deliver what we say, and we love America. Good night, and see you soon. Again, if you don't want to call me up, you can hit me with an email at superdeals1494@gmail.com. Good night, and have a prosperity day.